Hey, this is Mike Peters with Peters Industry Training and Consulting. In this video, I want to talk about functions with you. So, as you have seen my first videos, we already set a little bit something up here, and I want to go further into detail with that. First of all, what I did was I added a power supply and a digital input card and a digital output card to the CPU, just to make it a little bit more complete, even though we don't use that in that function. But well, let's dive right into the functions, and let's create our first function. So what we would do here is just add a new block. So in this case, we want to add a function, and then we also have to decide what kind of programming language we use. Well, you have different languages like the ladder diagram or the function block diagram. You have STL and SCL. What I go more into detail in another video. But for now, we just stick with the ladder diagram because that's it's a really graphic programming language, and it's easy to understand. And want to give it a name. And because we just started with the timer, let's just call it operating hours. And then we also again can choose if we want to do it manual or automatic. In our case, we do it in automatic. I mean, it's basically the same because we don't have any FC yet. We just go ahead and well, just create number 1, so FC1. Well, and then here we go. We have our first function created. It's empty, of course. And then let's go ahead and let's try a little bit something out. We want to create an operating hour timer counter that counts the operating hours of the CPU, the all over operating hours of the CPU. So we already created a couple of data here in our times DB1, and we want to go ahead and create a little bit more all the data that we need. So let's go ahead and we already have a counter, time counter for seconds and a reset for seconds. Now we want to go ahead and create a time counter for minutes and a reset minutes, time counter for hours, reset hours, and a time counter for days. So keep in mind, you have to give them a data type. It always takes the data type that was in the data bit before. In our case, we don't want everything to be a bool. We want this here to be an integer, and we want this here to be an integer, and also this. The reason why I didn't do a reset for days is because we count days, we don't count month, because that would like make that video too long to do it like we program here today, because that we have different numbers of days in every month, and it would take a little bit too long to program all that by foot like we do this this operating hours here in that video. So let's see, we have all these integers that we want to be retained. So we click retain on all of these. So that means whenever we shut down the CPU, that values in that data doesn't go away. It just will be saved to the memory card of the CPU, and next time we fire up the CPU again, this data will still be like it was when we shut it down. So just to keep that in mind. So let's go into programming. So we have our function here, and the first thing we want to do is we want to have a normally open, and then put in, okay, like we talked about that before, we use the clock function, and in our case the 1 Hertz, what means like it will blink every second. That means like every time that lights up, we can count seconds. So next one is every time that counts, we want to trigger our counter. So we put in a coil and go ahead and just like you saw with the clock, you don't have to like type everything in. Whatever data is already created, or whatever PLC tags already created, is giving you options. So I just type in T, and then okay, I want to go into the global db1 times, and then it gives you more recommendations for whatever bools are in there. So whenever you use a coil or a normally open, normally closed, stuff like that, it only looks for bools because that's the only thing they can process. They can't do anything with integers or something, so they're looking for bools. In this case, we want to have it count to 1. Enter, and then that's our first network. So in the second network, we want to now use this here, our counter 1, to do something with it. So we say, okay, network 2, normally open, then go for times, counter 1, enter, and then what we want to do every time this will be triggered is we want to count up. That means we want to add something, and as you can see here, time counter seconds, that's an integer, and the start value is 0. We want to add a 1 to it. So every time this operator triggers, we want to add a 1 to our time counter seconds. So what we're going to do is we put an add function in here, and I already put that into my favorites here. What you can do is just like go on the right side here, instructions. If you don't see it yet, it's probably hidden here. Just click on that arrow and it will pull up, and then you go to math functions, and you have this operator here, and you can just like drag and drop it over here and it will stay in there. But for now, that's good enough for us. You can just go ahead. You have this add block now here. What you do is like, what we want to do is like, we have this integer in times counter second, and then we want to add 1 to it, and the output will be times counter seconds again. So what happens is like whatever is in time counter seconds will be added by 1 and then gives it out back into time counter seconds. So that's basically what happens every time the clock ticks, triggers this here, and then this triggers the add function and adds 1 second to time counter second. So next step we want to do is like, we want to count up to 60 and then convert that number into 1 minute and reset our time counter seconds back to 0. We never want to count more than 60 because that would mess everything up. So what we do is we say, okay, go over here, go to comparator operations, take this here over, that's equal, put it in, so then say, okay, we want to look into times counter second equals 60, and then do something. And what we want to do is putting in coil. We already created something what was called times reset seconds. So we want to do that. Enter. So now that's it for this network. In the next network, we use this here, put in a normally open again, say OK, times reset seconds, and then we want to do something. And what we want to do is two things. First, we want to move a 0 in time counter seconds so that we're back on 0, and what we want to do, we want to add 1 to our time counter minutes. So we do that like that. So we take the move, put it in here, say OK, we want to move 0 into times counter second, enter. So, but then we also want to do something at the same time, and that is add 1 to the time counter minutes. And that's how we do it. We click on here and then click on a branch. And if you don't have that yet in your favorites, you can just go on general and then have close branch, open branch, and stuff like that. So we did that now. Click on that arrow, and then we want to say, okay, we want to have an add function again. Take that add function, and then we say, okay, now we want to have time counter minutes add by 1 and put it out into time counter minutes. So that we make sure, okay, we count up in times now. So then what we do is just like repeat what we did before. So now we have where we have the minutes that count up every time 60 seconds are full. We now want to have the hours count 1 up every time 60 minutes are full. So what we do again is like we take this down here, we compare it, and say, okay, time counter minutes equals 60, then do something. And we want to do the following. We take a coil, say times counter minutes this time, reset counter minutes. So, and then again, we go ahead and say, okay, normally open. Whenever that is triggered here, it's times reset minute. We want to do something. In our case, we want to, like we did it here, we want to move something and we want to add something. So first, we say move, and we say, okay, move 0 to times counter minutes. That's pretty much it. And then again, we also want to, I'm sorry, of course not there, we want it here, move, that was also not right. Okay, here, move, wait for that green thing, and then we want to say, okay, move a 0 into times counter minutes. Click on here, open branch, and then we want to add something, add, and this time we want to use times counter hours and add 1 to it and put it into times counter hours. So same thing, whenever that is triggered, we will move a 0 back into times counter minute, that we start again we never want to go over 60, and then we also add 1 to time counter hours. That means like after 60 minutes we have an hour, put it into hours, and so on. So the next one will be, now we want to put it into days, and this is pretty much the same, just the number will be a little bit different. So we take times counter hours and then compare it to 24. So, and then we want to do something, and we want to do something like we did here. We just reset the hours. So we say coil, and then times reset hours here, and then in the next network we go for a normally open again, times reset hours, should do something. And again, we do 2 operations. First, we do move something. We move a 0 into times counter hours, and also open a new branch, and then say we add 2 times counter days 1, and put it out in times counter days. So that's basically it. So now we are counting all the operating hours of our CPU. That's pretty much it. So then what we have to do is start a simulation. For that, we go on this main block here, PLC 1, that's our main block. And then we go on this button here, start simulation, go on it, and it will start up. Takes a while. So if you don't get that window right away, it's probably showing you a bigger window where you can choose where you want to download your project on. Well, normally it also shows you the existing hardware, that the actual hardware that we don't have here, but you can just like click on PLC Sim, and then use the PLC Sim 1200, 1500, because we're working with the 1500. It's a little bit different from the 300 and 400, so that's why they separated it. In our action, in our case, we stick to the 1500, so just use that. And then it will ask you to, if you want to have that path for the future as a default, just say yes or no, whatever you want. I said yes. That's the reason why it goes into the simulation right away, and I don't have to go through that anymore. So we want to initialize all the data blocks that we created. So we say reinitialize, and then we say load, and then it takes a while, but then it opens up the simulation, and you can go ahead and use this. Oh, and then finish. Sorry. Okay. So now, where we have our simulator in place, it's not in run, but it's kind of running. So, what we're gonna do is go ahead and try to monitor all that. So what happens if we click on that? Nothing happens. Why is that? Because we created our function, but we never told the system to actually call the function and tell it that we want to use it. So that's why it doesn't go like, you see that it's light gray here, and that means like it's not active whatsoever. In our case, it's because we never called that function. That is what we're going to do now. So we go offline, go in our main OB1. This is the operating block that comes with the program. Every time you are creating a program, the main OB1 will already be there for you, because that's a mandatory operating block where you have to call all the functions and everything. So what we're going to do is we go on that main OB, and then I delete that for you to show it how it works. So you just right click on network 1 and then go down here, insert network. So, and then you have another network. No, this is not what we wanted. We wanted to insert STL network because that's easier to call. So what we do here in that line 1, we just type call and then FC1 and then just hit enter, 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 and then you see it called the FC1 with the name in it. So what we created here, operating hours FC1, was automatically put in here. The only thing you have to do is call FC1 and then hit enter 3 times and you're good, and it will call it up for you. So what we did now is we modified something. So that means like the program that we modified here is not on our CPU or PLC sim yet. So what we're going to do is we go ahead and we hit download to device. What it will do is like, yeah, we want to override it. It will compile the program for you into codices. This is actually what the CPUs run on. The actual code that the CPU runs on is codices, and our program that we programmed in the ladder diagram will be compiled into that language for us. We don't have to do it. It also downloads it, and we are ready to go. Now when we go on our function again and now hit monitoring, you will see that something happens here. You see that? So everything what is green is like imagine it as electricity flowing through. So let's see what it does. Oh, so here you can see this is not counting seconds. This is like going crazy. So what we didn't do is like prepare for that, because even though that clock ticks every second, but it stays longer, stays on longer than only like a bit. It's staying on for like I don't know how many milliseconds, but it's just too long. And like as long as that stays on, it will put ones. It will add ones to time counter seconds. What we don't want, we want to add one single one to time counter seconds every time this goes on. So what we're going to do is we go back to instructions here, and then you go on bit logic operations, and then you search for something called PTrig. That's positive trigger. I already have that here. So what I just do is like I'm going on here, click that, and then I have a positive trigger here. And what I do is just like give it a name. I already did that before. Put that in, hit enter. So this is a memory right now. So create a memory, and then what you want to do is, because now as you can see here, you have like a difference between the online and offline program. If I stay closer, you can see that online, offline different. Because we only change that in our TIA portal. We don't change it on the simulator. So what we're going to do is like we hit that block here, and then we just download and compile it. Consistent download, yes, load, and it will be in it. And then as you can see, we're still on monitoring. Now it triggers it, and then what you can see down here is it now counts real seconds. The reason why you don't see that green here is because that is so short that the graphics can't handle that. That's the problem. But as you can see here, it counts it in a timely manner of a second. So let's see what's going on with our further operations. Here we compare. That's not 60 yet. Here, what do we have here? We have already 14 minutes. That comes from our messed up stuff before. So let's go ahead and go into our times and monitor that. Then we can see what's going on here. So we have, we already have 20 days. That's not right. So what we're going to do is we modify the operands back to 0, just that we can start from scratch. 0. You have to keep in mind, so you can only modify operands if you click on the start value. It's not going to happen here on the monitor value. I mean, it shows it to you for like a second, but then it's gone. So we go here, and then we start from scratch. So let's see if our time counter minute goes up by 1 after we have the 60 seconds full. Well, you can see that, and it's like 2, 1, 0. So it counted up. In your case, probably you won't see anything. Everyone is scratching his head right now, or her head, and the reason why you can't see that is because you didn't enable the clock yet. So I forgot to tell you that. So go ahead on your devices, click on the CPU, go on properties, and then search for something called system and clock memory. And then you have to enable the enable use of the system memory byte. We have our first scan for first cycle. So whenever you fire up the CPU the first time, when it was shut off, it will set that bit to 1 and then delete it in the second circle. Also, we don't have to talk about diagnostic status changed yet. I go more into detail in a later video. You also have a memory that is forced to 1 all the time, so it's always true. And you also have one bit that is always false that you can use in your programs. So go ahead and click that. If that is not possible right now while you have this orange block here, this is because you can't change anything in your hardware before you are offline. So go offline. Say go offline. Oops. Go offline. So whenever that orange block is gone, you can actually modify it. So enable that, and then scroll a little bit down. You see the clock memory bits, and then you enable that too. Many of you maybe had these problems that in the beginning of programming the function, you couldn't find that without typing it in all the way. So because it wasn't enabled yet. Sorry about that. But you wanna fix that now, and then everything will work like I said. Also, when we go back online here, just go on like monitoring again, we'll see it works. So let's see if everything else works too. So monitor, we see, okay, we already have like 3 minutes in, and now we want to see what is going on with the rest of it. So because I don't want to wait an hour or a day to see if that works, we just modify the operands. So we put that here to 59, See, it counted an hour up here. So set that back on 0, counted an hour up here. Now let's see. I don't want to wait a day for that. So we go ahead and modify the operand here to 23. And after a minute, though, it should, I want it to be resetted here to 0 and then count the day up. Let's put that IR2. Didn't do that. Why is that? Why didn't count it up? Once again, 58. Oh, I know why. Okay, so now modify 59. Okay, resetted everything, counted the days up. We're done with our function. Well, guys, let me know if you find that helpful. Let me know what you think about the videos, and I will add new ones tomorrow. I will probably add a video about function blocks tomorrow with kind of like the same functions, just to tell you what the difference between these two functions and function blocks are. And well, let me know what you think about it. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you.